Well, we're going to switch things up a little bit. This one might surprise you, so stay tuned. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Today I want to touch on a topic that I don't usually do a whole lot of delving into. Privately, I spend an inordinate amount of time researching this sort of thing, but it's not something I really wanted to bring to my channel too often. But this is a topic I felt everyone needs to hear. Today we're going to listen to Rand Paul discuss this new, I don't know if it's implemented yet, but I believe it's going to, but Homeland Security has created a division called the Ministry of Truth.
Alrighty then.
Who decides what is and isn't truth? I mean, let's be honest. Growing up and being the age that I am, I would say without question, as much as you hear bad and wrong and flat out lies, what they call disinformation, which I just call misinformation. You hear CNN, you hear MSNBC, you hear Fox, you hear all of them giving their personal agenda on topics, and they turn out to be absolutely incorrect. We went through this whole pandemic believing that masks didn't work, and then masks do work, and then masks didn't work again. We were told that if you were vaccinated, you were immune from getting the flu. I'll use the word flu because it keeps me from being demonetized. But if you get vaccinated, you won't get the flu. Well, you get vaccinated and you still get the flu. Well, then they say, well, no, it makes your effects less, but you can't spread it to other people. Turns out you can still spread it to other people. So you can get the flu and you can spread it to other people. But it means you're not going to be hospitalized. Well, no. There are people who got the V, got the flu, spread it to other people, and ended up in the hospital. So all of this is just wrong information, and at no point has anyone that came out and made these comments said, you know what, our bad, we're sorry. That was our mistake and we will do better. You never hear that in politics. No one is willing to admit they are wrong. So now we have a ministry of truth. Now, if this ministry of truth was around when I was a kid, we would have been told there are absolutely nuclear weapons in Iraq. Weapons of mass destruction do exist. They didn't exist. We were told, we're going to change your health care and tax you for it, but you're not going to have to pay as much an insurance cost, and you can keep your physician. That was a lie. The United States government lies more than any entity on the planet, including CNN, who may be a close second, MSNBC, Fox, The View, you name it. They all know better, but they still tell you bad information. We live in a world today we can't even define a woman or a man. That's how bad it has gotten with all this misinformation. 20 years ago, if you asked someone to define a man or to define a woman, most likely your response would be, well, a man takes care of his family and makes sure that, they're secure. A woman takes care of the family, they take care of the house. That's not how the question's worded now. Now you have to define whether, if you have male genitalia, can you be a woman?
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
Misinformation has been going on for decades and decades, all the way back to the early 1900s. We have been misinformed by our government and by the people we are supposed to trust, the media. They used to have commercials that say, and I'm sure they still do, a network you can trust. All these local affiliates, I think Brian Regan had a whole skit on there going, well, if you got to tell me that I can trust you, I don't know if I trust you. That said, and for me not to ramble too long, Rand Paul sat down with the head of Homeland Security to discuss this new Ministry of Truth. Rand Paul is a senator out of Kentucky. He is a doctor. He is a very polarizing figure because he stands more for libertarian than he does Republican. Now, he claims to be a Republican, but even if you asked him, he would probably lean more towards libertarian. His father, Ron Paul, was also a Republican, but absolutely a libertarian and a constitutionalist. So I'm really curious to hear what Rand has to say to, in my opinion, one of the many useless pieces of our government. You can go all the way down from the ATF, which regulates 3 completely legal things, being alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. But we had to make a special organization for that. TSA, those are useful. We keep growing government, and there's really no purpose for most of it, but we keep growing it anyway. Rand Paul is one of those people that opposes a lot of this, so I'm very curious to hear what he has to say. So rather than talk your ear off, let me just stop right here. Let's listen to Rand Paul talk to the Director of Homeland Security. Let's do it.
So here's my question. The FBI concludes that the Steele dossier was full of Russian disinformation. CNN propagated this disinformation gladly for years and years. The difference, I guess, between your opinion and our opinion is that, as despicable as it is that CNN propagated this disinformation, I wouldn't shut them down. I wouldn't lecture them. I wouldn't put it on a government website that CNN's wrong for propagating disinformation. The problem you have is you're not even willing to admit, I mean, we can't even have an agreement on what the FBI said was disinformation. How do you propose that you're going to have an office of disinformation governance if you see the problem in even determining what is disinformation?
Oh, Senator, because our work is not focused on disinformation writ large. Where we, the Department of Homeland Security, become involved is when there's a connectivity between disinformation and threats to the security of the homeland.
Well, that's what the Russians might be considered that. You mentioned the Russians the other day when you tried to pivot away from this being about censorship. But let's say it is the Russians. I know you're not going to ever agree that the Steele dossier, which y'all spent so much money on, was disinformation.
The Steele dossier. Now, if I recall, a certain governor of California promised the people that he had information relating to the Steele dossier that would absolutely criminalize Donald Trump. That didn't happen. So what happened with that?
I don't usually do this, but I felt compelled to tell you something.
Let's keep listening.
But it was, and the FBI concluded. But let's just say there's an imaginary disinformation. You've discovered tomorrow Russian disinformation that's going to hurt our national security, and CNN's broadcasting it. What are you going to do?
Senator,
You're going to tell Putin you shouldn't do this.
Senator,
what are you going to do?
Senator, let me explain what we do in the Department of Homeland Security with respect to disinformation.
I hate that no one can
and
ever
frankly,
answer the
what
question.
we've been doing for nearly 10 years.
They always divert.
Across different administrations. The cartels propagate disinformation that Title 42 does not apply to a particular community of migrants from a particular country.
How are they propagating this?
If I may, through social media. And what we do through U.S. Customs and Border Protection is actually communicate via social media and other channels that is false, that we do apply Title 42.
So let's say there's Russian disinformation as well. Are you going to take to social media and broadcast that people are broadcasting something incorrect about what do you think is Russian disinformation?
Senator, let me emphasize.
Well, you said the other day Russians, and now you're saying not so much the Russians, you're saying the cartels.
No, I'm not. Senator. You're mischaracterizing my statement.
Then what are you going to do if there's Russian disinformation? You're going to broadcast something on social media?
Allow me to share when we become involved in the Department of Homeland Security.
Please.
We become involved when disinformation poses a threat to the security of our country. It is when there's a connectivity to a threat to our country. It could be a threat, connectivity to violence. And what this working group does, is precisely what I would think you would want it to do, which is to take a look at the work, the disinformation work that our department has done, and ask the following questions. Do we have policies? Do we have guardrails? Do we have standards?
But here's the problem. We can't even agree. We can't even agree what disinformation is.
Rand Paul just nailed it. We can't agree or define the term disinformation. What Mayorkas has said so far is that they're looking for threats to our nation, which is the job of Homeland Security, which is why the Patriot Act was such a polarizing discussion, because that literally allowed the government to spy on citizens. What's the difference with this? What's going to happen if you're wrong? The Hunter Biden laptop, we were told that that was Russian disinformation. And I think that's what Rand is trying to get at, is it was told to us, the American people, this was Russian disinformation. When it turns out it was not disinformation at all. That laptop existed, and the contents on that laptop are very damning to our current sitting president of the United States, and it was hidden and withheld from us prior to voting on this president, which should piss everybody off. We should know these types of things. We shouldn't have to be told after the fact and go, well, can't do nothing about it now. The big guy's in there. These are facts. This isn't my opinion. My opinion be damned. We all have opinions. I'm only here to hear facts. And what I keep hearing is yes or no question. Well, Senator, let me dance around your question without answering yes or no and find a way to make it sound like this is something you're going to want. Even you would want this. No. I just want a yes or no answer, and if there's more gray area to it, follow the yes or the no with, but in the instance of, can men be female? No, but in the instance of intersex, there is a possibility that there is an option to choose either gender. This is how you answer a question. I'm not going to get any of that out of this video, I can already tell you, because I've watched enough of these Senate hearings to know they're never going to answer the question. Can you define a woman? No. And that's a trick question, and you're baiting me with it. Now, it seems pretty easy to answer that question. Is there a difference between gender and sex? That's a better conversation than saying, I don't know what a woman is. Don't you think? Makes us seem like we've devolved to the point where we question everything so much that we've lost reality. We've become Orwellian society with authoritarianism.
No. You done got me talking politics. I didn't wanna.
That should scare everyone. Let's get back to it.
You can't even agree that it was disinformation, that the Russians fed information to the Steele dossier. If you can't agree to that, how are we ever going to come to an agreement on what is disinformation so you can police it on social media?
Thank you.
Senator, I have 2 points, if I may finish.
Let's hear these points.
Number one, that what this working group does, because it's not an office, what this working group does is ensure that there are guardrails, definitions, standards to make sure that the free speech rights, the civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy rights of individuals.
So do you think COVID disinformation threatens our national security?
And number two, if I may, Senator, and number two, is it your proposition that when the cartels spread disinformation with respect to our immigration
Who the hell
policies,
cares about the
to try to
cartel?
lure
There's much bigger
vulnerable
fish in the
migrants
sea
to
for
our
that.
border illegally?
I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is?
U.S.
The U.S.
government.
government. Are you familiar with McNamara,
Hell
the
yeah.
Pentagon Papers?
He's right.
Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our
Come on,
country.
Rand.
We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You think we can't determine,
Like this guy.
speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is? You can't even admit what the truth is with the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation. So I do have a question, and here's the question.
And he's in government, so he
the
knows.
Russians, maybe some cartels. What about COVID disinformation? Is that in your bailiwick for your disinformation governance board?
Senator, you would have to give me the details with.
Okay, here. I've said a million times. I've said a million times that cloth masks don't work. YouTube takes me down. They're a private company. I can have that beef with them. What about you? You going to look at that? I often say that natural immunity from having had the infection is equal to the vaccine or better. You going to take that down?
This is just a reminder for you guys watching this that is Dr. Rand Paul. He is a physician. Because I hear all the time, well, the physicians all agree. This is a physician that doesn't agree with all of the things we hear about the flu. I've been alive a long time. They've never cured the flu. They've had many variants of the flu. This is the first time that a bout of the flu has been so polarized. Hearing an actual physician make these statements and saying, look, we need to debate these things. We need to discuss them, not shut them down, is refreshing, because that's what we need to do. Things need to be debated because there are gray areas. But if you shut down the conversation, it becomes authoritarianism. We don't need authoritarianism. We did not grow to be the superpower of the entire world by being authoritarians. Many countries in the past have tried this. Russia, Germany have tried to be authoritarian and run the world. The only country to truly be able to be the world police are the ones that were allowed the freedom of speech, the right to bear arms. You're familiar with our Constitution, and that Constitution, within 150 years of our existence, made us the most powerful country in the entire world. And to this date, 2022, because I'm going to mark this date because we are losing ground, we are still the number one power in the world. And changing the way that we govern based on feelings, based on a lot of nonsense we look at today is scary. Let's get back to it.
First of all,
Those are very specific.
Senator, first of all, it's not for us to take it down. And second of all,
Are you going to
we
put
are-
information out
we
there
are-
saying that I'm spreading disinformation?
Senator, we are not the public health experts to make those determinations.
So public health won't be part of the Disinformation Governance Board. No COVID disinformation. Yes or no?
Senator?
Yes or no? Is public health going
Senator,
to be part of your censorship group?
not gonna answer you, dude.
Allow me, because you're presenting hypotheticals that are vague.
And very
I just gave you a
important.
very specific one on cloth masks. I
You
gave you a
did.
very specific one on immunity from previous
And I
infection.
answered your question, but let me answer the last question that you posed. Do not, under any circumstances, accept a vaccine at a FEMA overseen vaccination center, because they are actually peddling fentanyl.
What the hell are you talking about?
Now, should I sit back
What?
and take that, or should I actually disseminate accurate information. That's what we would do. Should FEMA issue accurate information that the vaccinations that we are administering in the sites that we oversee actually are the COVID-19 vaccine.
Has anybody else ever heard? I've never heard that. So this is where he's talking, I suppose, about the cartel saying don't take the COVID vaccine because they're not giving you COVID vaccine, they're giving you fentanyl, and it's given to you through FEMA? I've never heard that before. Where's that coming from? Is that something that's coming from Mexico? The cartels are telling people crossing the border not to get the vaccine? Seems like a moot point. If you're crossing the border legally, and the law is that you must be vaccinated in order to enter this country, it's a moot point. If you want to enter this country legally, then you're going to need to become vaccinated. Whether I agree with vaccinations or not is irrelevant. But if that is the law, then that's how it should work. If these people are concerned that rather than getting the vaccine, they're going to be shot up with fentanyl, it should make them think twice about crossing the border. But why are they crossing the border? I'll tell you why. Because we are the #1 country in the world when it comes to the ability to thrive and have a better life. Don't people ever forget that. People are not beating down the borders of any other country the way they are beating down the borders of the United States to enter this country. Rant over. Let's get back to it.
I have a greater respect for the American people than you do. I think the American people can figure out the truth. And if you think the American people need to be told there's not fentanyl in the vaccination, feel free to say it.
Right.
But the thing is if you are going to go around saying that you are the arbiter of information and of disinformation, I think you have no clue. And you don't have the perspective history knowing that disinformation, the largest progenitor of disinformation in our history has probably been the U.S. government.
I've never said that, and actually I've said the exact opposite.
Thank you,
We
sir.
are not the truth police.
Did he just say we are not the truth police? I need to delve further into this ministry of truth because he just said that they are not the truth police, whereas the implication that I heard was that was exactly what they were, is they were the arbiter of truth. Anytime you let the government tell you that they're the only ones that know the truth, you're being had, you're being taken. Don't believe that nonsense. Quick story before I let us go. When I was in high school is when the DARE program, the Say No to Drugs program, became big. Every school in my city had a committee of people that would make signs that would say no to drugs. Don't do drugs. This is your brain on drugs. Everyone that was in that committee was a known pothead. Everyone at my school. You knew at 7th period, when you saw that little room, people would exit out of that room, you knew everybody in there smoked weed. They were the ones that were about to leave school, go get in their cars, and go smoke weed. That's the U.S. government. In a nutshell, the same people that tell you not to do something are the exact same people doing it. And it's been proven time and time again. So I'm concerned about this ministry of truth. And when I saw this video, I felt obligated to share this video in the hopes that people watch it. Whether you agree with me or not, it's irrelevant to me. I have my opinion, you have your opinion. We can fight and argue all day long. It's not going to change the fact that we are now being told that the U.S. government is creating a ministry of truth, which means they're going to detain people and imprison people for what they consider misinformation, which is a word they can't even define. And that should scare everybody. I don't want you to go to jail because you disagreed with me. That's not how it works. Words aren't violence. And I'm sure people will argue with me about that as well, but words aren't violence. Violence is violence. Physical violence is physical violence. Words may hurt your feelings, but when I was growing up, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words aren't going to hurt you, not physically. We're now being told that words will physically hurt you. You will be detained. You will be put in cuffs. You will be sent to jail. These are the concerns I have, and I have this for all of us. I don't care if you're a Republican, you're a Democrat, you're a Libertarian, you're a Tea Party, you're an atheist, you're a Christian, you're a Muslim. I don't care. I'm worried for all of us, and this is the sort of thing that concerns me. I don't normally do this sort of subject matter, guys, so I'll delve more into these types of things. If you truly want me to, you're going to have to get in my comments and tell me exactly what it is you'd like for me to research. But this is the type of thing I felt compelled to bring to your attention because it does concern me, it concerns you, it concerns everyone in this country, and the only countries throughout my history lessons that I've ever learned that had an actual ministry of truth labeled as such were authoritarian countries, and typically communist. Stalin, Hitler, Mao. They had ministries of truth. And that worries me. Sorry to end on such a sour note, guys, because really this channel is for fun and for learning about new music and introducing me to new music. So that's really where this channel is founded. And maybe in the future I'll get more into political stuff. Maybe in the future I'll get more into other types of things. That's up to you. You guys tell me what you're curious about my opinion on, and I'll be happy to address it. But I want this channel to be fun. I want this to be an escape from this sort of thing that we just sat through. So in the future, let me know what you want to see, what kind of content. And everybody just treat each other good. Be good to each other. That's all. Until the next time, guys. Come at me, bro.